Hi, in this video I'm going to provide a short tutorial on making a racing car game, a very simple racing car game, with the GGEngine. What I've done, I've downloaded the GGEngine from the repository. I've stripped out the example projects, and I'm just left with a basic template which gives the window creation and creates the window in the constructor. And to start this, I'm going to need a few components. I'm going to need a shader object, which I'm going to instantiate in the shader in the game constructor. Now, the shader can take a vertex shader and a fragment shader, but I'm going to opt for the default shader by passing through no arguments. Also going to want a container. A container is an object which holds renderable objects. So I can add many renderable objects into the container and then they get rendered to the screen each. So I'm going to create 3 of them. I can put it all into one container, but I like to keep things a little bit organised. Actually, I'm going to call you the player. So that's where the player action is going to be. And a container for the info. So I'm going to put all my text elements into there. Also going to need a few sprites, which are renderable objects. They get put inside the container. I'm going to have one for the, what we're going to call this, the track, which is going to be the background, and I'm going to have a vector, an array of sprites, which will form the which will make up the barriers. If I can spell barriers correct. And that is singular. Also want a texture, which I will use as the car itself. So I'm going to call this car. Very original. Probably going to want to add some more variables into here, but for the time being, let's just add a few more things to a constructor, such as background, player, and info, because we need to assign these containers with a shader. We've only created one shader, that's okay. We can just reuse that multiple times. Of course, new container, we're going to pass through just a shader. We're going to get the default renderer and a default projection matrix for each of these containers. Equals new container, shader, and finally the info. Equals a new controller. Get excited. Container and shader. There we go. Right, so we've got them set up. As I said, this is a completely empty template. We've got 2 files for the template. We've got a game.h file and the CPP file, which, as you can see, is completely empty as well. Right, so let's start piecing some of this information together. So we've instantiated them items. So let's start with just colouring in the track. Now the track's going to be the first object that gets added to the background container, so that's going to sit at the back. Anything else that gets added to that container will layer in front of it. So I'm going to create a track. That's going to equal a new sprite. That sprite takes in many variables. It takes in the position, which I'm going to set to -16 and -9. So that'd be the bottom right hand corner, I believe it is. Bottom left hand corner. And I want it to expand the whole width of the screen, so the whole of the screen is going to be white. So That's going to be 32 by 18, and we're going to put in a integer value, alpha, blue, green, red. Okay. Right. So let's give this a quick test. If we run this into the renderer, so actually before we can render it we need to add it to the container. So what was our container? It was background. Dot add to container, track. Gosh. And then if we go to the render loop, we can then get the background to render. So let's give that a quick try. Yes, please. And we have a completely white background. Excellent. Should have showed you it with a completely black background, but hey ho. Well, let's change the colour quickly, make sure that works. Make sure we just didn't have a white background by default. Whee, blue. Okay, blue's not a nice colour though, so let's go back to the white. Okay, so we've got a track. Next we need to add some barriers to make it look a bit more like a track. Now I've prepared this up previously. And if I copy that out, and it's some colours there, and we didn't call it barrier, we called it barriers. So let's actually a bit quicker just to get rid of that S. There we go. Whoosh. There we go. So we've got our barriers, and then we can add barriers after the track. So we want it to layer in front of the track. So for x equals 0, create a for loop going through all the elements in the barrier. Size plus plus, and of course if I define what I is, it will stop moaning at me. Okay, and then so background, add to container, barrier, I. There we go. Let's make sure all these items have gone to the right place, and I've not just punched in some random numbers. Hey, we've got a bit of a track and a starting line as well, which I forgot I put in. So the white area is the track that the car goes round, brown is a sort of ditch area, and the black is a no-go area. Okie doke. Right, next we're going to want a car. Now, hopefully I should have in my images a car underscore right PNG. So we're going to create a new texture, which, yep, we've already assigned it. So car equals new texture. Gosh. Right. And all we need to pass through is the texture itself. So it's in the image folder, that's car underscore right 2.png. Excellent. And then we need a player sprite. And we haven't got, oh yep, do we have a player sprite? No, we don't have a player sprite. Let's create a sprite for the player. Yes, sprite. Player, oh. Player box. Player, that's better. So, now we've got our player sprite, we can create a new sprite. We shall give it a position. Now these aren't random numbers that I've typed in, I worked some of these numbers out earlier when creating the project. Right, and I want a car size of 2, 2. So it's a square image, and the texture that we're going to pass in. Up here we can pass in a static colour, or we can pass in a texture here. So that's overloaded, we can pass in the car. Right, now these twos we're probably going to use again. So let's just create a constant integer, car size equals 2. So let's replace that with car size. Car size. Save. Right, so the player needs to be added to the player box or container. Cool. Player.add to container. Player. Right. Now, so if we render the player box as well, player box, render this container, and let's give that a run and see if we've got a player in the screen. Oh, we have build errors. Where do we have build errors? Equals new shader player. Oh, because we changed the name, didn't we? Player box. There we go. And there's our little car. We can't move him yet. Apologies for the suspicious PNG there. I've got a little black line. Right. So next, let's get him to move. Now we're going to do that in the update method, and so there's quite a bit of code. I've got a bit of an example here. Here's what I prepared earlier. Now some of the variables might be slightly different, so we might need to rename these. Change that to window. And there's one more window. There we go. We'll come back to this in a minute, but we're missing a speed variable. So if we add another constant, obviously you wouldn't constant float speed, and I'm going to give that 0.2f, and I'm not going to make it constant because obviously it's a game and you should be able to change speed. So save that, and we should have controls. Now what this does, it checks if the key is held. In this case it's the left arrow key, right arrow key, up and down. It will then increment or decrease players' X or Y position, depending on which direction they plan to travel. But then, as I haven't got collision detection in it, I've had to sort of hard code that in as it was. So, if the player goes to a certain position, it reverses what it just did, and the player can't go there anymore. Okay, so let's give this a try and see if we can now move the car. There you go. Up, down, left, right. Now the conditions will prevent it going outside the barriers, outside the window itself, and it will prevent you going outside the middle bit. It's great, and we can spin round, but there's no real objectives. So let's carry on and add some more details in there. Right, next thing I want to do is add some text. Now to do this, we're going to need to call the font manager and add a new font. So let's start with that. So get our font manager up. We want to add a font, and this is going to be a new font, and I'm going to call it font. Very original. Right. Next bit needs to be precise though. Alright, so I'm going to use one of my favourite fonts that I like using on websites. It's a Mully font, TTF, and we shall give it a size of 32. So that's added. Now the next bit is work in progress as it was. Currently you need to, once you've added a font, you need to get the font by name. We called him font, didn't we? But currently you need to set the scale, and currently that can only be done from wherever it's been instantiated, because, well, we know how big the screen is at this point. So set scale, and we're going to go window, so get window width divided by 32, which is the dimensions that we set the window to in our projection matrix. We opted for the default projection matrix, and that's what it is, 32 by 18. Set window, get window height, and divide that by 18. Right, so now we need some text elements. So let's add some new text objects. We're going to have one for the time. We're going to have one for the lap. Next. And we're going to have one more, which is going to record the best time. Okay. Right, so back over here we can now instantiate them as new text values. So we'll do the time text first. Equals new text, and that's going to be time. Yeah, 0. There you go. That's it. That's how we want it to look, don't we? We'll give it a position, minus 15.5. We want it on the far left and very close to the top. And we're going to use the font that we added. And because we've got a bit of a dark background, we're going to go for a white font. Now we can either do that as the integer value, or I've predefined some very basic colours here as a hash defines. Next, lap text equals new text. And that's going to have lap, and we can start at 0 for that. And again, we need to set the position. So that's going to be on the far right. The far right, coming in a bit though, because it starts at the bottom left and draws it onwards, and at the same height as well. And we're going to give it the font, and again we're going to go with a white colour. And finally we're going to have the best, if I spell it right, equals new text, and that's going to say best lap dash 99.999, and that's going to be smack bang in the middle of the screen, but as I say, it starts on the left, and so we want it over a little bit so it looks almost centered. We'll give it the font, and we'll give it a green colour. There we go. Okie doke. Now we can add them elements to our info container. Container to container to text. Add to container. Lap text. And info. Add to container. Best text. There you go. Right, so we've got them added. Let's add them to the renderer. Do we want it the last thing or before the player? Just in case the player goes over the text, I suppose. Let's put that before the player gets rendered. This container. There you go. Right, hopefully we've got no errors here. Let's give that a try. And there we go, we've got our timer, our lap, and our best lap time. Obviously that's not doing anything at this point, so let's start adding in some conditions. Alright, so what we're going to do now is add some conditions. So when the car hits certain points, it triggers a boolean value, as it was to say it's hit a checkpoint, because we want the car to go around the outside of the track, but at the same time, you know, not cheating. So I've got some conditions prepped up here. So again, once they're defined positions at the moment, so once the car triggers these positions, we'll then change the boolean value. Unfortunately we don't have the boolean yet, so we're going to create a boolean array of checkpoints. Let's have a boolean checkpoints array. Okay, and that's remedied that. So what we've got here, we've created a new boolean which gets set to false every time it goes through. If the player gets to the bottom right hand of the screen, switch the checkpoint to true. This is if checkpoint 3 is set to true, then the finish lap equals true. So the idea is to get to this point back at the start, and then it just goes through the other positions, checking if the previous checkpoint is true, setting the new checkpoint to true until you get all the way to the bottom. Then it looks to check for this one again. So once that's been set to true, we can then add a condition. If finish lap is true, then we want to reset all the checkpoint positions first, otherwise won't be able to continue. Equals 0, so we'll loop through that array of checkpoints. I is less than 4, I plus plus, and we can just reset all them to false. Yeah. And we need a lap variable. We're going to need a lap variable to hold that information, and then we can add that to our text so it gets updated as it goes round. We could actually add the lap to the, now we've got our lap variable. Let's add that into the tick condition. Now the tick condition only gets executed once a second, so it's not going to keep checking every 300 frames as it was. So let's get our lap text. Now unfortunately the text value within the lap text is public, so we can very quickly alter that. We don't want pounds, we want that. Okay, lap. Try to keep it the same. We want to convert that to a toString, and we want to put the lap there. There we go. Alright, so let's see if this is working. We whiz around. Don't know if it's going to increment yet, and no, we're not getting a lap. Something's gone wrong. Oh, plus plus. So what's the little things that get missed, though? Oh, there we go. We got our first lap. Ooh, there we go. So we're getting laps going. There we go. Next thing I want to do is add a timer. I need some more values for this. So let's have a look. Let's in the header file, I'm going to create a current timer and an update timer and the best lap. So let's create a float, create a current timer value, let's set that to 0, 0. We'll have another float, and that's going to be the update timer. 0f float best time, and that's going to start at 99.99f. So then we can check if the lap time is faster than the best time. We can then get that first initialized, as long as you don't take over 100 seconds to do that very first lap. Okey-doke. Right. Back to the car project. Right. So in here we're going to have let's update the time just after the lap gets incremented. Actually, no, we want it outside there. So regardless, current timer gets updated. So the current timer will plus equal. Now there's a get timer method, which is in the game engine itself. So that's the length of time since. This will return the length of time since the application started. So if we compare that to that, that's set to 0. That would just give you that value, but the second time round we want to update the update timer with the get timer value. That way next time it goes round it will just update the increment as opposed to everything else. And this might be a good place to text, update the time text equals time. We want to go to string again, and we're going to put in the current timer. Right, let's just make sure that part's working. Let's run that. And there we go, we've got a timer. Right, now when we finish the lap we want to update the best lap time as well. So let's add a condition. So if current timer is less than, not less than and greater than, that don't make sense, less than best lap, best time. There we go. Then best time should equal the current timer. And then we can update the text as well. So best text equals best lap plus std2 string, and we want the best time. Excellent. Right, and then finally we just want to update the current timer back to 0. Okay. And that should hopefully be that. So let's run that, see if there's any issues. And we're going to go around, we've got a timer, we've got a lap counter, we'll get around here. And there we go, we've got our best lap time, the timer resets, we've got our lap counter. Oh, got stuck on the wall, this ain't going to be a good lap. Yep, definitely not. Yeah! And there we have it, a very simple racing car game. Thank you for watching.